Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Would You Read It Challenge video for August 2022. The Would You Read It Challenge was started by Et2 Brody. I'll link to that channel down below. The purpose was to pick a variety of books and read only the first sentence and then discuss with your audience if you'd continue from there. But I have modified this to read the first few paragraphs of books, and in the first half of this year, I took a bird's eye view of all of my reading throughout various years and discussed some books that I read during that time and had a bit of fun and got a few views out of it, so I thought I would continue. But I am altering things a little bit, and I am looking at the history of the BookTube Prize. The BookTube Prize is an annual prize judged by members of BookTube and other literary online, communities. It's run by Robert at Barter Hordes. We judge the best in literary fiction, nonfiction, and translated fiction. Right now, we are judging the final round for 2022. But I'm going to go back way to the beginning, to the first year, which was 2019. It was a year where we only judged the fiction, and in fact I wasn't an official judge back then. I did sort of unofficially participate in some ways and read some of these books, but I didn't, it wasn't anything official. But now I'm going to go ahead and read at least the beginnings of all these books, and we can discuss what we think of them. So yeah, I'm going way up to the long list, which was judged in the Octafinals in, I think, February and March of 2019, and there were 48 books in that long list, and I am starting with Octafinals Group A, which is a ballad of 6 books. So here I go. Book number 1. West Berlin. From the moment I accepted the invitation, I was nervous about returning to Germany. It had been so many years since I'd last been there, after all, and it was difficult to know what memories might be stirred up by my return. It was the spring of 1988, the year the word perestroika entered the language, and I was seated in the bar of the Savoy Hotel on Fassenenstrasse, contemplating my 66th birthday, which was only a few weeks away. On the table before me, a bottle of Riesling had been decanted into a coupe glass that, a note in the menu revealed, had been modeled on the left breast of Marie Antoinette. It was very good, one of the costlier wines on the hotel's expansive list, but I felt no guilt in ordering it, for my publisher had assured me that they were content to cover all my expenses. This level of generosity was something new to me. My writing career, which had begun more than 35 years earlier and produced 6 short novels and an ill-advised collection of poetry, had never been successful. None of my books had attracted many readers, despite generally positive reviews, nor had they garnered much international attention. However, to my great surprise, I had won an important literary award the previous autumn for my 6th novel, Dread. In the wake of the prize, the book sold rather well and was translated into numerous languages. The disinterest that had generally greeted my work was soon replaced by admiration and critical study, while the literary pages argued over who could claim credit for my renaissance. Suddenly, I found myself invited to literary festivals and being asked to undertake book tours in foreign countries. Berlin was the location for one such event, a monthly reading series at the Litterhaus, and although I had been born there, it did not feel like home. And that was from A Ladder to the Sky by John Boyne. Book 2. Will. They'd gathered on a rooftop at Knoxhurst to watch the explosion. Platt Hall, I think, 11 floors up. I knew his ego, and he'd have picked the tallest point he could. So often I've imagined how they felt, waiting. With 6 minutes left, the slant light of dusk reddened the high old spires of the college, the level gables of its surrounding town. They poured festive wine into big-bellied glasses. Hands shaking, they laughed. She would sit apart from this reveling group, cross-legged on the roof's west ledge. 3 minutes to go. 2. 1. The Phipps building fell. Smoke plumed the breath of God. Silence followed, then the group's shouts of triumph. Wine glasses clashed together, flashing martial light. He sang the first bars of a Jeja psalm. Others soon joined in. Carillon bells chimed, distant birds blowing white, strewn like dandelion tufts, an outsized wish. It must have been clear then that John Leal came to her side. In his bare feet, he closed his arm around her shoulders. She flinched, looking up at him. I can imagine how he'd have tightened his hold, telling her she'd done well, though before long it would be time to act again, to do a little more. But this is where I start having trouble, Phoebe. Buildings fell. People died. You told me once I hadn't even tried to understand. So here I am, trying. And that was from The Incendiaries by R.O. Kwon. Book 3. Look, it is winter in Prague. Night is rising in the mother of cities and over her 1,000 spires. Look down at the darkness around your feet, in all the lanes and alleys, as if it were a soft black dust swept there by a broom. Look at the stone apostles on the old Charles Bridge, and all the blue-eyed jackdaws on the shoulders of St. John Nepomuk. Look, she is coming over the bridge, head bent down to the whitening cobblestones. Helen Franklin, 42, neither short nor tall, her hair neither dark nor fair, on her feet boots which seem to serve from November to March, and her mother's steel watch on her wrist. A table salt glitter of hard snow falling on her sleeve, her shoulder, her neat coat belted, as colorless as she is, 9 years worn. Across her breast a narrow satchel strap, the satchel her afternoon's work, instructions for the operating of a washing machine translated from German into English, and a green uneaten apple. What might command so drab a creature to your sight when overhead the low clouds split, and the upturned bowl of a silver moon purls milk out on the river? Nothing at all, nothing that is, but this. These hours, these long minutes of this short day must be the last when she knows nothing of Melmoth, when thunder is just thunder, and a shadow only darkness on the wall. If you could tell her now, step forward, take her wrist and whisper. Perhaps then she'd pause, turn pale, and in confusion fix her eyes on yours. Perhaps look at the lamplit castle high above the Vlta, and down at the white swan sleeping on the riverbank, then turn on her half-inch heel and beat back through the coming crowd. But oh, it is no use. She'd only smile, impassive, half amused, this is her way, shake you off, and go on walking home. And that was from Melmoth by Sarah Perry. Book 4. The day somebody McSomebody put a gun to my breast and called me a cat and threatened to shoot me was the same day the milkman died. He had been shot by one of the state hit squads, and I did not care about the shooting of this man. Others did care, though, and some were those who, in the parlance, knew me to see but not to speak to. And I was being talked about because there was a rumor started by them, or more likely by first brother-in-law, that I had been having an affair with this milkman, and that I was 18 and he was 41. I knew his age not because he got shot and it was given by the media, but because there had been talk before this, for months before the shooting, by these people of the rumor, that 41 and 18 was disgusting, that 23 years' difference was disgusting, that he was married and not to be fooled by me, for there were plenty of quiet, unnoticeable people who took a bit of watching. It had been my fault too, it seemed, this affair with the milkman, but I had not been having an affair with the milkman. I did not like the milkman, and had been frightened and confused by his pursuing and attempting an affair with me. I did not like first brother-in-law either. In his compulsions, he made things up about other people's sex lives, about my sex life. When I was younger, when I was 12, he appeared on my eldest sister's rebound after her long-term boyfriend got dumped for cheating on her. This new man got her pregnant, and they got married right away. He made lewd remarks about me, to me, from the first moment he met me, about my quaint, my tale, my country, my box, my jar, my contrariness, my monosyllable, and he used words sexual, I did not understand. He knew I didn't understand them, but that I knew enough to grasp that they were sexual. That was what gave him pleasure. He was 35. 12 and 35. That was a 23 years' difference too. And that was from Milkman by Anna Burns. Book 5. When Saul dies, Simon is in physics class, drawing concentric circles meant to represent the rings of an electron shell, but which to Simon meant nothing at all. With his daydreaming and his dyslexia, he has never been a good student, and the purpose of this electron shell, the orbit of the electrons around an atom's nucleus, escapes him. In this moment, his father bends over the crosswalk on Boone Street while walking back from lunch. A taxi honks to a stop. Saul sinks to his knees. The blood drains from his heart. His death makes no more sense to Simon than the transfer of electrons from one atom to another. Both are there one moment and gone the next. Varya drives down from college at Vassar, Daniel from SUNY Binghamton. None of them understand. Yes, Saul was stressed, but the city's worst moments, the fiscal crisis, the blackout, are finally behind them. The union saved the city from bankruptcy, and New York is looking up. At the hospital, Varya asks about her father's last moments. Had he been in any pain? Only briefly, said the nurse. Did he speak? No one can say that he did. This should not surprise his wife and children, who are used to his long silences. And yet Simon feels cheated, robbed of a final memory of his father, who remains as close-lipped in death as he was in life. And that was from The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin. And finally, Book 6. Luck is not chance. In 1932, my father was dead and my star was rising. I could write. People looked for my name. I'd gotten a big bounce from the Milwaukee Sentinel to New York because I was the only woman to cover Big Ten football playoffs and the excellent Smith scandal. Idiot corset salesman and his buxom mistress cut off the head of her husband and hide it in the bathtub. I had hit it hard in Brooklyn, at the Daily Mirror, and moved on to the Associated Press. I had a small apartment with a palm-sized window and a bathroom down the hall. I owned one frying pan, 2 plates, and 2 coffee mugs. My friends were newspapermen. My girlfriends were often copy editors, very sharp, very sweet. And I was what they called a newspaper woman. They ran my bylines, and everyone knew I didn't do weddings. It was good. The men bought me drinks, and every night I bought a round before I went home. They talked about their wives and mistresses in front of me, and I didn't blink. I didn't wrinkle my nose. I sympathized. When the wives were on the rag, or the girlfriend had a bun in the oven, when the door was locked, I said it was a damn shame. I sipped my scotch. I kept my chin up and my eyes friendly. I didn't tell the guys that I was no different, that I'd sooner bed a dozen wrong girls and wake up in a dozen hot sheet joints, minus my wallet and plus a few scratches, than be tied down to one woman and a couple of brats. I pretended that even though I hadn't found the right man, I did want one. I pretended that I envied their wives, and that took effort. I had never had a wife or a husband until I met Eleanor. Then I would have traded everything I ever had, every limo ride, every skinny dip, every byline and carefree stroll, for what Franklin had, polio and all. And that was from White Houses by Amy Bloom. Okay, well, first off, it turns out that the very first book listed in the very first round of the Octafinals long list stuff was the book that won the whole shebang, A Ladder to the Sky, which made it through all the 4 rounds and hit the number 1 spot. I've always been a bit wary of this book, which is about, I think, a sort of noxious author and seems to just sort of be insular, pitying stuff, but, you know, to tell the truth, you can't say that for sure. What I can say for sure, that it was well enough liked that several judges put it through all the rounds, so maybe that means it deserves a chance. And these first few paragraphs were okay, I guess, although I think the most intriguing part of them was the ending, about, you know, Germany not feeling like home even though the man had a history there. I've in fact read 3 books on this 6-book ballot, and my favorite, I guess unsurprisingly, is the one I own, The Immortalists. I loved this book, which is about 4 siblings, 4 Jewish siblings even, who visit a fortune teller who tells them the days of their deaths, and then it takes the siblings through these experiences that lead one by one to their deaths, and we get to know them a bit more. In all honesty, and I think people think I'm a little crazy, I kind of wish we'd done away with the fortune teller and the whole, free will versus not free will conundrum, and had found a way just to follow these siblings like one after another, because it's kind of like a domino effect in a way, and like just to be able to look at their deaths that way and their lives, because it really is more about their lives than their deaths. But the conceit, puts a film on things, and I think you can tell from those first few paragraphs that they're haunted by the death of their father and like how sudden it was, so that in a way I think the point was sort of to be cognizant of, the fragility of life, and that's what a lot of the book is about. But it's also, it's about life and about the ways you live and what means something to you, and there's Jewish content that I loved, so yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. I had a little more trouble with The Incendiaries, which I also read. I thought it was a little too experimental for me, and I didn't get invested enough in the characters. It was about a terrorist act at a college, I believe. It had some ties to North Korea and Korean culture. But I remember I felt a little distant from reading the book, but I felt like those first few paragraphs certainly were there to really draw you in, to know, oh my God, something horrible happened and somebody's trying to understand a friend who was involved. And then there was White Houses, the final book I read, which I think I found kind of middle of the road. It is a historical book that tells the relationship, the arguably real-life relationship between the First Lady of the United States, Eleanor Roosevelt, and a reporter who covered White House affairs, a female reporter who, that was rare enough in the days, and going by their letters, it seemed like they probably had a romantic relationship, and so the book chronicles that. And yeah, I mean, I guess I thought the first paragraphs were interesting enough, because they're, setting up a woman who's very different from her time and circumstances, so it's always kind of intriguing to see how somebody like that fits into things. Then there's Melmoth by Sarah Perry, which I've now read for the first time, or the first couple paragraphs. That's all I've read of this book. That's all I know of it. But it kind of reminds me of The Incendiaries, because obviously they're teasing you about something, about this Melmoth issue, about this woman who gets involved in something that's going to be life-altering in some way, and they're teasing you about it, like saying, like, could you, who I guess it's kind of second person, which is interesting too, like, could you change things for her? Would she listen to you? So, I don't know, I mean, I guess it's intriguing, but at the same time, like, it's a bit of a gimmick too, like, right? Because we're not seeing the story in real time, we're being teased about something else. But I think a lot of people would consider that a hook. And finally, with Milkman, to me, this is a really long, rambling paragraph, and I guess going by my rules, though, at least it's all kind of taking place in the present. I found it like a bit much at the when I first read it, but now I'm liking it more. It's kind of interesting how this stuff works. But yeah, it seems like, again, well, we are being teased a little about this Milkman character, but we learn immediately who he is, more or less, to this main character, and that he was, some sort of, louse sort of trying to pursue her when she didn't want to be pursued, and that this apparently is a pattern in her life, and that she has an asshole brother-in-law that also, is trying to control her, be an asshole to her. So, yeah, although I guess one thing this very long rambling paragraph doesn't do much of is give you a very clear idea of where the story is going from here. It's like, okay, so we know the guy is dead, so what? And what's with this first sentence about somebody pointing a gun at her, which presumably can't be the milkman since he's dying at the time. So I guess that's a little murky. So, yeah. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours, whether you have read these books or not. I know they were kind of big literary fiction hits of a couple of years ago, and I will leave information, their Goodreads pages and my own reviews if I wrote them, linked down below. In fact, back in 2019, I took the 3 books that I read and made a video reviewing and comparing them, so I will also link that video down below. And that about covers it for me now. I am looking forward to diving into this project. I've only read like a handful of the BookTube prize books that have been in the running these past several years, but it's kind of exciting to at least give all of them like a brief glimpse of a chance. So I'll look forward. Next month I will try to get to the Group B ballot for 2019. But in the meantime, I'll be back on this channel much more currently, soon, I guess, with my next AM reading video where I talk about the books I'm actually finishing this month, so stay tuned for that. I hope you're all having a great time with what you are reading for the BookTube or otherwise for my fellow judges. I hope you're all, hanging in there. We got about a month left, roughly, or a month and a half left before our ballots are due, and we will know the winners for this year as well, so huzzah for that. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.